Welcome to Inside Plug, the podcast where independent creators and entrepreneurs connect and inspire. I'm your host, Devon Jones. Today on our show, we have actor Fridolin Blasl. Frido, welcome to the show.
Hello there. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation, for taking the time.
Glad to have you here, Rich. So you are one of our many actors. We love actors, but we're interested in how the actors got started with their journey and what inspired them. So Frido, if you can bring us back from that beginning, how did acting begin for
Absolutely.
you?
My pleasure. I got started in Vienna, in Austria. I'm originally from a little town in Upper Austria, near to the Czech-Austrian border. You don't have any to know anything about that on that matter. So later on, I moved to Vienna and I studied acting for about 2 years in a little theater where there's like only 40 seats and there's only like so much space between you and the audience. Very, very intimate. And somewhere along those lines, in those 2 years, I decided that I have to go further and to educate myself in filmmaking, and how to act in front of a camera, how a set works, actually, what all of those interesting things around film, how they are, like how I'm able to access them as tools. And so I applied for an acting school in Los Angeles, California, got accepted, and did my associate's degree in acting over there. And ever since, I'm delving deeper into the psychological part of acting, and I really keep deeply connecting and developing more and more interesting like views and techniques for myself in order to go further technique wise, and to go further when it comes to developing a character, which is more more of a to me it's more having thoughts of a stranger, or thinking like a stranger than actually putting on a mask. It's more about how do I understand the inner workings of someone? How do I get to this point where I understand those little habits that people have? And right now um, I have found a studio in Vienna which teaches a technique which is very, very interesting and so different from everything I've studied up until this point. It's called the meetup. The meetup is a technique founded by a psychologist who was a contemporary of Stanislavski, and um, its main emphasis is on the subconscious and how you access your subconscious and make it work for you. And I've started to utilize this technique since April, and it keeps delivering outstanding results. So to anyone who's like interesting in who's like on a journey to discover something new, this technique is basically my big hint. Like have a look at the meetup. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, got a couple questions. So let's bring us back to the theater.
Yeah.
Was that your first time performing, and how was that experience learning how to act on stage?
Well, I have to say it was not my first experience. So I got thrown onto stage at a very early age when I was like 5 years old. I did musical theater, and it was this lifeline that's like really helped me also during high school, when I had a very hard time connecting with my colleagues at school, but like what really like kept me in there was acting at musical theater. And when I was done with high school or graduation, my civil service, I was like a civil servant, where I worked in a hotel in Jerusalem for about a year in Israel. I got back to Vienna, and I knew that I had to go a step further. And I had a very, very strict teacher from Romania. my first acting teacher, and she was really very, very much to the point, very blunt. Like at certain points, she kept delivering her feedback in this very strong Romanian accent with a very strong, "r," and it kept like really like um it went somewhere with me. It was very intriguing, and at a certain point, I also realized that with this teacher, I'm only get, and then I eventually went to LA for those 2 years. That's about the journey.
Awesome, awesome. All right, Frida. So now let's jump into some of your projects as you went from the theater stage to now the camera. So you
Exactly.
had this project that you worked on. Let's talk about your actor showcase that you've done.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
Oh, that was a wonderful experience. We did that in LA in a facility of my school, which also happens to be a coffee shop at the same time. So you have sometimes have like producers or industry people dropping in, and you just invite them over to these showcases because that way you connect. So it's a great thing to have because you get to know people and you also get to show that you're able to act. So that's great. Showcase was more than like only showcasing people. It was also a class that taught me how to talk to agents, how to research people and see if a project is actually worthwhile pursuing or not. And what we also did, we got a casting director from Disney who kept coaching us on the scenes, on what scenes to pick, what kind of angle to pick for our monologues to like showcase our abilities. In my case, like the first technique that I learned back in Vienna was Brecht. Brecht is not well known in America. He's a German writer who developed an acting technique which is quite presentational. So if you're on stage, it kind of works, but as soon as you have a camera in front of you, like it doesn't serve you at all. Like it's really, really disturbing. And so I kind of really had to dial it back. And Showcase was a great opportunity to like take it back to the inner workings, to the psychological aspect of acting. And I did a scene, for example, from La La Land, and with one of my colleagues, and um, the challenging part of it was that there's not much happening, but this scene still had like a turn to it. There were still like loads of mental actions, and we still had to like drive through the thoughts with clarity without going too far. So this was basically my challenge and my journey from presentational to intrinsic.
Nice, love that. All right, so then now you're on this project, The Bear.
Mhm. Bears,
How's
yeah.
how's working on that?
Oh, that was really fun. Oh, that was a little bit more presentational because the director of this project is a 70-year-old Romanian comedy director, and so he like builds all of these jokes for you, and you kind of have to execute them. And so I got back from film school. This is one of my first projects which I had lined up, and I look at the text and I'm like, oh my gosh, right? So how are we gonna make this work? For example, there's like a place, a specific spot in this show where I have to pick up a table, switch it, and catch um my colleague with this table, and so she's like lined up to the wall, and there's the table in front of her, and my the remark I got from him was like, yeah, and so now I'd like you to catch her with the table, and I'm like, what? And we did a couple of takes, or a couple of rehearsals where we tried to figure this out, or like security wise, because neither do I want to be hit by a leg of a table, nor does she, my colleague, anybody else. So we had quite a very demanding time with this table, but it ended up being a success. So the critics I invited liked it. One guy really loved it. He was like, "Oh, you guys did a an amazing job at making this like 2025 instead of 19010." And the other one would have liked us to stick more to the original, but in my view, the original version of this play is very much like outdated because it's set around 1910. Like there's still the Russian Empire, and not only the currencies are different, but also the vocabulary is like outdated in many ways, and so we have to like do do some adjustments. Let's call it adjustments to the language to make it more accessible to a modern audience. And yeah, but I love doing it. Right now, we just did our last show on June 18th. And for now, I'm gonna be doing more films. So for as foreseeably, this will be my last show in this little theater for time capacity reasons. For it also has to do with creativity because the style that I work in right now is very different from what they want, and it just over time it just does not match. No, mm, there's uh, yeah, there's little cohesion when it comes to their way of approaching a play in a presentational manner. And I'd like to delve into psychological stuff. It's like two different realms, right?
Is that
So yeah.
I've actually gone into my next question. I was curious on was there any like additional preparation that you had to do for this character, vice to some previous performances that you done?
hmm Mm, when it comes to Smirnov, which is the name of this character, he's a guy who who's very different from what I represent. And the original version, he has a voice like this, and is somewhere here. And we're dialing it back. We're making this guy young, and not only young, but also this guy is very helpless and still tries to insert power at the same time and make himself useful, but he really doesn't know how to do it. Like he's trying to get this money from this widow, and she's just like she's just superior in many ways. And yeah, there's very little he can do. Like the moment I told you about with the table, and uh, like this spot is like his peak of power. Afterwards, it's just a very big downward spiral, no matter how hard he works on it. And so I think my challenge was really to hand the power over to her and to surrender to this instead of endowing myself with power. So yeah,
Love that. All right. So then now we're at this project at front.
at front. Yeah.
How was that?
Ashfront was basically my favorite project I had this year because it's in one of the stages of the largest German speaking theater, and it's my first gig there. And it's like one of those things you keep dreaming about, and eventually became a reality. So that's really cool. Um, Ad Front is basically a post-documentary theater performance. What does that mean? Like this in like surely summarized, it's more about it's like a collage of stories about war. And what we were trying to do was we collected material from interviews. In my case, I interviewed a former colleague of mine from school from Los Angeles. He's a Marine and has like tons of experience when it comes to war and being a soldier and what that means and what that does to you, how it transforms you as a human being. And other people, like one of my colleagues interviewed somebody from Mariupol in Ukraine and asked them about all of these developments during the war in Eastern Europe, which is still going on while we are talking, um, which is also the main topic. So we mainly focused on Ukraine while there's some Israel-Palestine conflict in there, like a tiny little bit. There's some conflict in the Republic of Congo, for example, the war on the Balkans from um in the 2000s, for example. There's like it's a big mix. We try to kind of make ends meet and squeeze this into 1 hour of performance. And the challenging part was to combine this with as much as we can with very little acting. We just really, in this case, we just really let our text work for us and let the story work through us. So the challenging part was really to only be a vessel of storytelling and not to reenact it, because there's no there's no way to reenact war unless you make a documentary. But like so, and we received loads of good recognition from critics, from the audience. Also, our director, who's from Ukraine, is um very much excited to delve into this topic more deeply, because due to the variety of conflicts, we had to like stay on the surface level because there's so much to it. It's really very much about the peak of the iceberg and not the bottom. And yeah.
All right, Frido, for listeners out there, where can they check out some of your projects at? Do you have a social media outlet, IMDb
Yeah.
page?
Right now, I keep like advertising everything I do on Instagram. So if you'd like to know more about what I do, follow me on my Instagram. You could also look at my Filmmakers, because I keep posting stuff there as well. And I'm gonna set up an IMDb page very soon. I'm on a project right now, which I'm not really talking about because it's not officially not happening yet, but it will happen somewhere towards the end of August, and that will most likely be my first IMDb credit. Yeah, but for now, it's Instagram is like the place to find and connect with me. So I'd love I'd love it if people had a look over there.
Awesome. Everyone follow Frito on Instagram, stay connected. All right, Frito, we're at that part of the episode where I ask the guest this question. What is a book, a TV show, or a film that you recommend to an aspiring
Uh-huh.
actor?
Well, I'd give a few hints. For example, I'd point them towards The Menu with Rafe Fiennes, because there's some really fine acting in there. They're like I keep picking monologues from there because it's wonderful writing and good acting at the same time, and that's something you scarcely meet somewhere like in this combination. So yeah, The Menu, for example, is one of my like big favorites. If I look at it as people doing a wonderful job while acting, where acting becomes so seamless, it doesn't look like acting. That's basically what we're going for. And when it comes to literature, I I would I would also point people who do like English speaking theater towards German German playwrights. For example, there's like there is a play which is called Faust. And Faust is set around a guy who has a deal with the devil. And the devil gives him all of these tools to, he makes him rich, he makes him successful. And but that comes with a price because he like has to sell him his soul. And that like and that kind of story is very, very intriguing. And it usually like all the big theaters here in town usually have this on their repertoire because it's such an interesting story, and it does a lot. Like it does a lot for people who do it, like the actors. And it also like sends the audience home thinking about this this thing where they're like, all right, I want to be rich and successful, but what what's the price? What do I pay? What do I sacrifice in order to get something? So yeah, that's my point towards literature, which I wanted to put forward. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for sharing. All right, everyone, that's been our episode today. Inside Plug. Frido, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Remember, everyone, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check us out every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. This has been an episode of Inside Plug. Remember, stay inspired and keep creating. Inside Plug, signing out.